Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Let's see. My name is Dave Peaty, and I'm the current board president of Publishing Professionals Network. Thank you so much for coming. We're really excited about today's event, and we're really lucky to have Bill Rojack with us. Bill is a VP of Sales at MIDLAND, which is a paper procurement and distribution company. He's been in the business for about 25 years, and he specializes obviously in paper, but specifically around publishing. And he has a very strong interest in environmental stewardship, which I know is of great importance to all of us who are here today. There's sort of an inherent issue around publishing. We are a huge manufacturing component of the economy in terms of use of paper, traditionally tree paper. And so we're lucky that Bill's going to enlighten us as to what's going on now and what we can expect in the future. Before we start, I just want to talk a little bit about some of the things that are coming up in Publishing Professionals Network. One is that we are in the process of judging the books for the book show. That book show will be taking place in San Francisco at Chronicle Books on October 26th, I believe. We have not yet opened up a registration to attend the event. We'll wait until the judging completes for that, but do look for that. The other thing is we're having a picnic this coming Sunday, I believe, in Berkeley, and we're doing that together with Bay Area Women in Publishing. So you can go to our website, and it's on our events page if you want to sign up and join us. It should be a lot of fun, and hopefully it won't be too hot or too cold. You never know in the Bay Area. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off and let Bill do his thing. Hold off on your questions. Basically, we've allowed time at the end, and it's entirely possible that if you have a question, he's going to get to it. So let's do that. Thank you so much. Oh, and this is being recorded. And please go ahead in the chat and let us know where you're coming from. It's always fun to see where people are zooming in from. Thank you very much. Take it away, Bill.
Got it. Hello, everybody. I apologize for my voice. It's frequently a little scratchy. Today is no exception. I am here today to talk. I'm open to you guys to talk about the paper market, which certainly has been dynamic here the last several years. But for the purposes, at least for the beginning of the discussion, I'm going to focus on how we go about choosing paper for your book, for your project, for your job, for your series, from my perspective, and some of the things I think that you as a community ought to be considering, and we as a market need to consider. I am not going to pay attention to the chat while I'm talking, if you're okay with that. I'll let sort of David and Peter handle the questions or whatnot, and I will leave plenty of time for Q&A at the end. Okay. With that, we'll move on. And when I asked Peter a little bit about what the group wanted to hear, he told me that this group tends to be something of a seasoned group. So I'm keeping this to let's call it more of the expert level. When we consider anybody involved in creating books, which I consider myself part of, when we consider what has always gone into paper choice, these are the obvious ones, right? This is what we've always considered. There's more, but these are the real basics of it. So it revolves around what it looks like and how it feels. I won't read off each of the bullets, but the environmental attributes has grown far more in importance and consideration as time's gone on, especially today. Economics have always been there. And whether what the paper price is, all the way down to what the perceived value that is, what the consumer thought about this product is going to be. Is it worth $30? Does it feel like it's worth $60 or whatever the price point is, and what are the comps relative to what we're creating. I'm involved in all of that and have been for my entire career, as much as the book publishers and the production departments will let me get close to, call it the table when these discussions are going down. I contend, and you'll see that that we can do a better job in that communication. And that's really what the whole focus of this is going to be. So we've got these basics, but what? Well, but it's a new day, right? We've been going paperless nearly my entire career. I've been told since I got in this business in 1994 that I'm crazy, that I'm entering a business that's literally going to disappear, that it is going away. People won't use paper anymore, that devices and e-readers are going to take over, and that paper as I know it will vanish. Well, look, they made a sitcom about my job in the office since this has come out, since this whole going paperless discussion started. And a lot of change has come throughout my 25, almost 30 years in the business. Among them, we've had a massive amount of consolidation. This is just a sampling of paper mills and names that you once knew that are no longer. And it will continue. This market is consolidating, and it's consolidating for very valid reasons. It's not just because we're going paperless. There are other, and in some cases, better ways to deliver the message, whatever it was that could only be delivered in a printed matter, now can be distributed in other forms or media. And we understand that. And as a result, it means an awful lot of our supply base has disappeared, and it's continuing to disappear. That's no surprise to any of you guys. Now, just as a sense, the industry as a result is transforming, and that consolidation has been sort of mind-numbing. Look at the total numbers. Just to give you a sense of scale, the biggest market in the year 2000, which is really about when the market peaked as far as how much paper was available. The newsprint market in North America was roughly 13 million tons. Okay? It is now less than 2 million tons. Some would tell you that it's less than 1.5 million tons. It's been a tremendous amount of consolidation. We put this infographic together, obviously in 2022, when Billerud Korsnäs bought Verso. Prior to that, Verso had been consolidating in the market in a massive way, as you can see. But it's not just Billerud or Verso. It's now, in a really big and somewhat alarming way, Paper Excellence. This is new. In 2019, Paper Excellence bought Catalyst, which was an amalgam of other big names, as you can see. Since then, they bought Domtar, which is also an amalgam of many big names. And then Resolute technically bought Domtar bought Resolute here in 2023, which is all part of the Paper Excellence family. Point of this is to show more transformation, more evolution. And my group is currently putting together another one of these infographics for the book manufacturing space, so that we can do the same to see, who CJK is, who they were, where they came from. Same with who Lakeside is, where they came from, and all the different companies that they once were. It's telling, and it's important for us to realize this, because it doesn't just speak to where we are now, it speaks to where we're going to go. So I offer you all of this as a bit of perspective, because when COVID hit, the time machine that, as we call it, all of this consolidation was going on long before COVID hit. But when COVID hit, it accelerated the pace of this in a way that was truly unprecedented. And so what happened? It truly was seismic change. In days, weeks, hours, it felt like there was immediate demand drop. for the paper mills, and they were scared to death. They had no idea what they were going to do with these massive assets. They sold off all of their existing inventory because they couldn't run the paper machines. There was nothing. So they sold through all the paper that they had already made sitting on their floors. Obviously, and we all felt it, costs then began to surge, whether it was because of bottlenecks or increased demand. Imports stopped because of whether it was Suez Canal or whatever else kind of heartburn we felt, and panic took over. And it created what felt like a scarcity and a price surge. But what we've since seen, while the scarcity was true, what we have not been able to figure out is what the real demand actually was. Because come October of 2022, not a year ago, not January of 23, we felt this starting September, October of 2022. And we were talking about inventory build. We started seeing it and feeling it, not at the manufacturer's levels, but at every printer level and in every warehouse around the world. And it really wasn't unique to paper and raw material. Book publishers themselves, wherever, speaking to the choir, I know, you bought whatever you could whenever you could for fear that you weren't going to be able to get your press time or paper. And so what did we do? We went from thinking that inventory was going to be the answer to all the problems to finding out that inventory became the cancer. And it is now sitting as locked working capital on a floor somewhere, trying to work it off. That's raw material and that's finished products. So all of 2023 to date has been this narrative. It's let's sell off whatever the inventory level, whatever the inventories are, and try to get to what's real demand, because that demand disappeared as of October 22. The only cost that has not given us any sort of relief is the cost of money. And in fact, that's gone the other way. And so now when we have inventory of raw material paper, typically it's inventory of the most expensive paper anybody has ever bought ever. So it's money sitting on the floor that now when we have to go out to deploy our working capital, it's costing us more than ever before. So this inventory is a huge spotlight on it, naturally. And where buyer panic, right, for fear that we weren't going to be able to get it, has turned into supplier panic. And all the boats showed up at the same time at the end of 2022 and the beginning of 2023 with product that we were all waiting patiently for. And it's contributed to this inventory heartburn. Well, the suppliers now are all freaking out. Depending upon what vertical we're talking about, we really separate the paper market into 4 different buckets: coated free sheet, coated groundwood, uncoated free sheet, and uncoated groundwood. Those 4 buckets. All 4 of them are operating with very low operating rates right now, some of which are as low or expected to be as low as they were at the beginning of COVID, except there's no inventory at the mills for them to sell through, but they don't have to because we have all the inventory, either printer floors or stuffed in warehouses somewhere. So we're all trying to figure out what's the real demand. When we get rid of all this inventory, how much demand versus capacity will the paper market actually require? What's balance look like? And we still don't know. But what we do know is there are a few dynamics out there that are, like always, every day is going to bring a new challenge, whether it's a strike or a mill lockout or some sort of storm. We're going to have heartburn along the way. Right now, we are dealing with some of that. But yet, here we are in what the traditionally busy time of the year for book publishing, and the paper mills are not busy. Whatever lead time you may or may not be experiencing, or may be experiencing, if you go try and get a quote for paper right now, if it's out past 4 weeks, typically that's because the mill is down, and they're not coming back until they get enough orders in there to justify them running on a regular basis. There is a lot of market downtime, and they're taking it so that they will not give up pricing. They can either give up price and take orders, or they'll take downtime and hold price. They can't do both because their costs are down, but if they reduce the price and the orders aren't there, we're just going to lose capacity. So that's where I'm going with this, because this is truly unprecedented. None of us have ever really been there in this sort of volume before. Market swings are that's always been. Supply and demand ebbs and flows. But like this, since COVID, nobody's ever felt this before. So we felt a dramatic price increase and scarcity. Now we felt a dramatic swing the opposite way. And the question is, what's going to happen? Well, I'm here to tell you that we're going to lose more capacity. We have to. And so we collectively, as a market, need to do a better job of communicating what's important to us all the way around, all the way through the supply chain. We're going to lose. The paper market spoiled all of us who have choices of what to buy for many, many years, as you can see. You name what the finish is, you name the color, you name the brightness, you name the bulk. We've been able to have any size you want, right? 5 1/8, 5 1/4, 5 1/2, 5 3/8, you name it. It's been out there. I'm here to tell you that the day is changing. And at the same time, the technology is changing to support the book market, right? You're seeing way more acceptance of high-speed inkjet printing to deliver our books in shorter runs, which is way more efficient theoretically for all of us. But what does that do to the paper market? Well, as you're racing to get, as the market's growing, as it was into, say, the year 2000, the new paper machines that were being built were all being built to scale. They wanted to be the biggest and fastest because, well, that's where the economies were. But then, since then, we've been losing share. The market's been shrinking. And so now, if you are the biggest with the biggest paper machine that's the fastest, you are now the most exposed. And what happens when we have inkjet technology come online, as we do right now, and inkjet technology demands 18, 19, 20-inch rolls being made on machines that are now 400 inches wide. Well, you create bottlenecks and a mess at these paper mills coming off of such giant machines making such little rolls. So you might not think about it, but these are things that we need to start thinking about collectively. How are your books going to be made? What roll size? And so here we are, right? The basics of how we chose paper in the past need to be tweaked. We need to consider more variables, all of us together. And I'm here asking the publishing community, asking the content creators, asking the artists and designers to communicate with us what's important, why, and listen to us when we say to you, well, that might not be the best for the supply chain. We might be putting ourselves in a box or in a quarter. And so here's the answer. The answer is this is an opportunity for us to stop treating the supply chain in a vendor mentality and start treating it as partnerships. We're all shrinking together. We're all changing together. We're all delivering your products together. And so I ask that we all try and find that gold star, that spot in the middle of the Venn diagram for us to have, and it's really just by communication, whether it's the sustainability discussion, but it could be about colors and finishes and weights and frequencies and brands and vision, or who you believe in, or who owns what mill, or what print location. There's so much to consider here. And I don't know that we've done a really good job collectively to put all these factors in play. We've been stuck on, well, my book has always used a 400 PPI and it's only 300 and something pages, so I need the book to bulk an inch or more for the perceived value. Well, we get that, but that might not always be the right answer for the supply chain. And so let's have that open discussion. And where should it where should it be? It should be with your print manufacturers. It should be engaging the paper mills. And it should be with people like me in the supply chain, all the way through, whether it's through associations, whether it's through your own individual companies, whether it's through, um, you name it. It can come a variety of different ways. But I encourage all of you and all of us to really read the tea leaves. It's only going to continue. The consolidation is only going to continue. And so this is the future. And I see, for me personally, I see a path forward where we're going to have less uncoated free sheet options out there. That is your traditional 45 or 50 pound free sheet bulking cream white 400 PPI that will not yellow. We're going to have fewer of those options. The market is already largely on the big trade side downgraded to groundwood for those even hardcover books, not just trade paperbacks, but hardcovers. It's moved from 50 pound, 400 PPI, 92 opacity cream white free sheet to a 45 pound groundwood to a 40 pound groundwood. And it's even moving to a 38 pound groundwood and 400 PPI. Knowing that trend, it might seem crazy to some of you listening to me right now to think that you're going to produce a book with a price point of $30 that you expect your consumers to accept, that's going to yellow in one day while they're sitting on the beach reading. But the truth is that's happening, and we need to talk about it. It might not be the right fit for your book, but then we have to have a discussion of, well, what is the right fit, why, and what's the supply chain. The same is true for the education market. Anybody on this call who's in the education space, it's changing. The supply base for paper is changing. 45 pound New Era mat is going to go away as of 2025. What are we going to do? What's going to happen? Will the STIMRA spec or the NASTA spec continue? Will it exist? Does it need to? These are all questions that we collectively need to sit and talk about. And change is going to force opportunity. It's also going to create an awful lot of heartburn. And the only way we're going to get through it is by having webinars like this to put people like me on the hot seat and to get everybody who's vested talking about it. And so now I'll shut up and open the floor to let's have a discussion.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much. Let's go ahead and you don't need to share anything more on your screen, right?
I'm ready with a market presentation if anybody wants to hear about it. But it's big, it's thick, it's got a lot of data, but it can help sort of back up some of what I've said so far. But I won't share it unless it comes to that.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and stop sharing the screen then for now. I don't see any questions in the chat. If you have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat. We may take you off speaker and have you ask directly. I know that first of all, this sounds very, very dark for the future of those of us who are trying to figure out how to choose paper, how to select paper. And so maybe one of the things that I find in all of these presentations is that communication is really the key to how we all move forward. And that was clearly the take-home message of your presentation today. And so you talked about that, you had the sort of Venn diagram. Lots of us don't even get a chance to talk to the printer. Those of us who are freelancers, who have a publisher in between, sometimes if we're even at the publisher, sometimes there's a production person who's really the point person, and often it has to do with, price points, and that's really the only thing, that's their consideration. We do have some question. Do you have any thoughts, given your interest in environmental sustainability around the whole FSC versus SFI and PEFC? That's from Mike Johnson over at Sheridan Books.
First of all, hello, Mike. Yep. I mean, do I have thoughts on it? I sure do. I know FSC is considered the gold standard among the environmental communities and among most of the publishing community for a variety of very legitimate reasons. SFI had a black eye right out of the gate because it was created by the North American paper companies themselves. So sort of self-audited, if you will. It did become an independent third party and has a lot of chops. And they are different for a reason, primarily because land ownership in the rest of the world is very different than land ownership here in North America. Here in North America, most of the forest land that we harvest from is owned by small parcels, small individual landowners who, if they harvest their land, they do it once in a generation or once every other generation. They hold the land for other reasons, not to be harvested. And so for them to become FSC certified is it's a very difficult task. SFI has more provisions in place for that, whereas FSC really was an international standard, and it was created specifically to address large swaths of land that were either government or company owned, and they've done a great job with that. They also, FSC did, at least prior to SFI, and again for good reason, address let's call it indigenous peoples and biology on the ground in those areas where in North America we didn't quite have indigenous peoples being displaced the way we do in other places around the world. PEFC does account for that also. I guess the sum of all of that is chain of custody is really important for all paper, period. I don't care where it's from. And I would encourage everybody on this call to make sure that you vet chain of custody on any pound of paper that you buy or use for the product.
Great, thank you so much. Kate McKinley asks, it sounds like higher end papers are going extinct. What do you see happening for art books and higher end books?
So I wouldn't say they're going extinct. The truth is that the mills want to make heavier basis weights of paper. So art books are traditionally going to go on, let's call it 80 or 100 pound gloss or matte or satin. And that's a sweet spot for the paper mills. They love that. That's where they want to be. They don't want to be in a 45 pound matte or a 40 pound because they get less pounds per hour off their paper machines. There are a handful of mills that do like the 45 pound matte because it's considered heavyweight for them in what they traditionally have made. There are not many. So that's part of what we need to look at as we consider the tea leaves going future for the education space especially. But for the real high-end art side of the world, I think you're going to be just fine.
Okay. Agnes Liu Donnelly asks, do you think new technologies or processing will make groundwood papers evolve into a higher version, less likely to turn yellow?
That's a fair question and a good one. The answer is no. What makes groundwood papers yellow is the lignin or the glue that holds the fiber together in the tree. The process of making a free sheet is you add chemicals to the pulping process to get rid of that lignin, and it goes away completely, and what you're left with is kraft pulp. The process to make a groundwood pulp is you literally grind the tree with less chemicals or no chemicals to keep, and it keeps the lignin, which increases the yield, meaning you use more of the tree in a groundwood product than you do in a free sheet product. You keep the lignin, and therefore you also keep the opacity. So groundwood tends to have higher opacity than free sheet does. There are hybrid sheets of paper being made currently where they're adding kraft, that is free sheet pulp, into groundwood pulp to make a hybrid sheet that will yellow less, but reversion or yellowing is inherent to groundwood paper.
Thank you. But this is a question, again, is from Mike Johnson, but I think it's something that all of us have been struggling with for as long as I remember in publishing, which is the issue of recycled paper and is going for a higher level of recycled paper really the most environmentally friendly way to go? So specifically, Mike's question was dovetailing on the certification chain of custody process. What's your take on the carbon footprint of recycled versus non-recycled papers?
Right. No, that's a great question and a really important. Everybody here puts their ears up on this. So there is great debate in the paper market around the benefits of recycled fiber versus non-recycled. Starting with purpose, okay? Making fine printing paper out of recycled fiber is a laborious and expensive and energy intensive process. We are adding a step to the pulping process, that is de-inking. To get the fiber to a cleanliness level that is acceptable for a lot of printed book material it's expensive, one. Two, it can be carbon intensive, right? So theoretically, putting that in your head, we're taking an otherwise very efficient process where we're making pulp on site from virgin trees that goes straight into the paper machine. Now we are replacing some of that and adding pulp that has come from another process to de-ink, adding freight, distance, whatever the carbon intensity is to do that to that process. There's science behind all of this, okay? It is of some debate that the better purpose for recycled fiber is tissue or packaging or newsprint or some sort of lower end product that we take the less intense quality intense fiber and put it there rather than fine printing paper. Having said that, if you've seen 100% post-consumer waste sheet today versus what it looked like 20 years ago, in my mind, it looks very different. The science has gotten better. The technology has gotten much better. And so I do sell a fair amount of 100% post-consumer waste paper, and it doesn't look like it used to. One. Two, there are specific mills that their entire purpose is to make recycled paper. That's it. Whether it's 30%, 50%, or 100%, their fiber supply is not virgin fiber. It is recycled fiber. For them, I tell you, there really is no argument. That's their business. That's what they're here for. Now, if you're going to measure the carbon intensity of that mill versus another mill, you got to go to the Science Based Targets Initiative and really deploy hard science, including freight, where this stuff is going, how far it travels to get to where it's going, and what the energy source is to make it, etc. That's all I can tell you. We have to defer to that, but it's really important that you look at the numbers. The conversation around sustainability in my career has shifted 100% from what was a discussion around recycled fiber, then it moved to chain of custody. It has now moved to carbon. What is the carbon footprint, the carbon intensity, the carbon impact of my paper? And every one of us here owes it to ourselves, to our businesses, and to ultimately our planet to figure out the carbon intensity of our products. We have to. And that the science is still not there. There's still a fair amount of discrepancy, and it's unfortunate, but it's getting better, much better.
Thank you so much. One of the things that I'm hoping that maybe we can offer to those who are attending here today or maybe watching the video is if there is any resource that we can provide, because I think often our clients, whether it's self-publishing author or whatever, they want 100% recycled stock post-consumer, and so they just want that. And it's hard to have a discussion, and so if there's a resource we can say there's much more than just having sort of a greenwashing, a 100% recycled paper perspective on this, and show them that considering the carbon footprint is probably a better way to go. So, Bill, you and I can have a conversation, and I'll try to share that if there is a good resource that's, especially if it's understandable to someone who's not necessarily in the industry, we'll try to provide that in the links on the video. Let's see, pricing expectations on both uncoated and coated tech stocks. Any thoughts about what the future holds? I know it's hard.
Well, it is hard, but I mentioned that the mills are trying really hard to hold price right now, and that's true around the world. There has been some price break, whether it's in it really depends, right? Europe's pricing came down, and North America's did not in some segments, but I'll tell you, if prices do come down, we're going to lose more capacity. That's just the bottom line. Mill costs are down, which means the margins on the paper that they are making are good. So they're good enough to sustain them taking downtime for a while, but they're banking on demand coming back. And I think it will. We have to sell through all this inventory. It will, but the question is, what's the real demand? And then once we get operating rates back up over, say, 90%, then hopefully we'll know what real demand actually is, and that will help us settle out the price points. The discrepancy between the real big mills on pricing and the smaller ones on pricing right now is pretty dramatic. And for matters of antitrust, me going directly into paper pricing is probably not a good idea on this. But I can tell you there's quite a spread out there currently. But the discussion becomes back to the partnership discussion. Who are you going to make your partner? And at what price point are they tolerable as your partner? If they're not your partner and you're just buying the price for the spot now, well, expect that's not going to stay there for very long, either because the price disappears or the mill does.
Thank you. When we talk about paper in the book publishing business, we're usually thinking about interiors, but there's always an issue around the specialty papers for jackets and covers. And whenever you have those conversations, the finishes and the laminates and those kind of things are always at play, and the sustainability issues around that. And I was wondering if you can talk at all to any of the sort of new technologies around that. So I know that at our conference last year, Ecological Fibers had come out with a new jacket material that didn't have a coating but was still protective. Do you want to talk about any of the things that might be available in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Let's put it this way: it's so specialized and so consolidated that Ecological Fibers almost seems to have the market on that. I know Nina and Ecological Fibers are sort of it. I know that there was an awful lot of heartburn through the pandemic on supply of a lot of this stuff. I do not personally sell any of it, but I hear the stories from specifically the book manufacturers. It's going to continue to morph toward more environmentally friendly, if you will, or conscious grades of paper. I can tell you all the way down to moisture barriers that paper rolls are wrapped in. There is discussion around how poly factors into the paper business, whether it's in laminating covers, whether it's in craft wrap that has some sort of poly on the inside of the roll wrap in order to make a moisture barrier, and how that makes that craft wrap less recyclable or reduces the value for it. All of that is a current discussion today. And it makes sense. As far as what I see for jackets and covers, I have seen there's definitely a move toward more standardizing, if you will, away from some of the special effects. If that's because of the environmental piece of it, if it's because of cost, if it's because of quick turn, whether it's new technology, I can't speak to it, but I can say I have seen more standardization.
Thank you. Mike asks again, let's see, do you have any perspective on EPAC's and CBG's involvement into the world of inkjet papers and the effect that will have on the industry? And I think you have to start with, what's an EPAC?
Yeah, that's a fascinating one for sure. Yeah, it's a all right. So EPAC is a book manufacturer. They are a printer, and in this case, what Mike is referring to, this is a specialty book printer who bought a paper mill. So CVG Crown Van Gelder is its name, is a premium paper manufacturer based out of the Netherlands that is now owned by the same person who owns and operates EPAC Technologies. And that's what Mike is referring to. It is a paradigm that, to my knowledge, only happened maybe once in the paper business when Bertelsmann used to own one of the paper mills that is now Lecta in Italy. But that was many years ago when they sold that mill off, Bertelsmann did. I don't know of a printer owning a paper mill in any other circumstance before. I can tell you that the way it's being positioned in the market is that that the EPAC perspective is that they help to develop the CVG technology, and that which is specific for inkjet paper, and that it's their belief, EPAC's, that they can help any book manufacturer who operates with CVG paper running through them in a more efficient and effective manner. So it's a very different sales model than I've ever seen before. It's certainly different.
Well, thank you very much. I don't see any more questions in the chat. I don't know if there's any sort of wrapping up that you want to do, especially in terms of how things could improve. I think, you know, all of us are realizing that the sort of immediate supply chain, the sort of on-demand supply chain kind of came around to bite us in the back during COVID. Do you see any kind of improvements in how we as a society, as the, you know, as an economic structure, are going to manage that better in the future, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, you call what I said dark. I think I'm certainly not trying to paint a dark picture, but the truth is this consolidation is dark. It hurts. And in the biggest way, it hurts jobs. It hurts people. It hurts families. And so I'm conscious of that before I'm conscious of anything else. I will tell you, we as a business, I think, have gotten better in the communication, and we need to continue to do it. And I see that as an opportunity. I would like to clarify to anybody on the call that to greenfield, to build a new paper mill costs roughly $2 billion and takes 5 years to build at a minimum, provided you can get all the parts and labor to support it. Point being, you're not going to see any new paper mills or machines be built in North America. Now, there are emerging markets, and they're in the Pacific Rim, right? And that's where you've seen new growth come online. And so we have to figure out how we exist over here and dovetail them in and make sure that whatever is coming from the Pacific Rim is sustainably sourced. And I know that the book chain project has done a great job of that, and is really important. Anybody who's not familiar with that should be. So, I mean, overall, our communication just needs to continue to do this. And David, I give you and PPN great props for having me on and for doing what you do with these things, because I'm guessing there are plenty of people who've never thought about any of this before. And as you say, some of you never get the chance to talk about paper. I am an open resource. Reach out to me, link in with me, follow me and my companies, see what we put up. We have daily newsletters that come out. This is a big market and important to the existence of books going forward. And I'm an open resource.
Thank you so much. We will have a conversation with Bill after this video, talk about some of the things that he's talked about, and we will put them in the description part of the video that we put online. All of you, those of you who signed up on Eventbrite and are attending, you'll get a follow-up email via the Eventbrite link, and it should have those the links to the videos, etc. We're always happy to take questions and to connect folks with Bill. Thank you so much, and thanks to Peter Goodman, who's on our board and made this connection possible. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I think we all do. And this is an area that we're going to have ongoing discussions about. So, and I'm sure we'll have some form of this discussion at our conference next April in Berkeley, and we'll continue doing that. Thank you so much, Bill, for being here.
You got it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.